So hot on the heels of the weekend's guard reveals, we have a new Cadian Castellan model, a fun and flexible new officer kit, and a few rules hints for how he's going to work in the new guard codex. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're returning to the Astra Militarum, and Games Workshop really weren't messing around when they said that there was more to come, as well as the several rumoured kits like Rough Riders and the big new battle tank that they haven't shown us yet. It also appears that they're giving us a pretty fun new senior officer kit as well, in the form of this Cadian Castellan. They've been fairly helpful with the model preview as well. They've given us a fair few photos of different things that he can be armed with, and also a few telling rules hints from the new codex, which do confirm some important things, and give us a bit more of a clue as to how the regimental command will be working in 9th edition. First up, let's focus on the model itself. It's another character miniature for the Imperial Guard, and in my opinion he does fill a bit of a gap in the range really. As the current model line stands, we have the command squad, of course reimagined into a new one now, but the Guard never really had a proper flexible officer kit, say for example similar to the Eldar Autarch or Space Marine Captain. With the options in the command squad box, you could build the vast majority of the different loadouts for the Guard officers, though maybe not quite all of them. So it is pretty nice to have it all realised in just one standalone kit that's actually built for the purpose, even though knowing Games Workshop it's probably going to be at a reasonably high price for just one infantry sized model. The other infantry character that we've seen so far at the weekend was that new Commissar, which maybe I think people felt a little bit let down with compared with a few of the rest of them, perhaps just a little bit plain and static in pose. I feel like this guy's maybe going to go down a bit better. Perhaps they're not doing anything enormously revolutionary with the model, he's just standing on his normal Games Workshop tactical rocks, but perhaps that's a little bit more to be expected, with perhaps one of the most generic Guard HQ choices, and particularly one that's set up to be a versatile kit, with quite a lot of different war gear options. Appearance wise, he looks pretty much what I'd expect of a Guard officer, slightly fancier military regalia, and a bigger and snazzier hat than average maybe. As his name as a Cadian Castellan suggests, he is very Cadian in appearance. I guess that was always going to be the case that they'd have to commit to one regiment or another if they're making Guard models. It doesn't look like he's got any particular things to try and make him have the appearance of other regiments. The name's kind of interesting in a Castellan. This denotes him as a senior officer of specifically Cadia, as opposed to any of the other regiments out there, and I guess serving under the Lord Castellan Creed, whether or not it's the father or the daughter. I guess if you really did want to make the kit work for other regiments, then a head swap either from Games Workshop's parts or third-party producers would probably do you quite well. The body armour is fairly Cadian, but maybe there's nothing that absolutely screams Cadian officer at me from the rest of it, so I think that a head swap or something would really give you a lot of theme towards another regiment. I think he wouldn't look too out of place in a Death Guard gas mask, for example. Options-wise, it broadly sounds like pretty good news. It does very much feel like a release kind of in the similar sort of keeping with the new Eldar Autarch kit that had quite a lot of weapon options included, so you could basically build most of the common loadouts of that model. I'd say for Guard, the importance of that is perhaps a little bit less, just due to most of the gear being fairly generic pieces that a lot of commanders will already have in the bits box, but I think it really is a helpful touch to have them included in the kit. That way they look a bit more deliberately modelled with the model. And I guess with Games Workshop in an era of usually having no models, no rules, it does help safeguard them against getting retconned from the Guard Codex. Confirmed within the kit are a power sword and chainsword for the melee weapons. It was also heavily hinted that he'd have a power fist option, though it wasn't shown. And for ranged weapons, it's the same things that he can take at the moment: a plasma pistol, bolt pistol, a bolter, or you can field him with the pointy hand, no doubt delivering some orders to the Guard. There's 4 different head swaps as well, 2 of which they've shown us. I feel that's a nice touch as well, as it can add quite a lot of personality to the commander and differentiate one from another. For a couple more photos of the guy, we've got this guy on the left with the bolt pistol and power sword. We can see one of the head swaps on the right with a bit of a monocle commander type look. The monocled one looks like it's a bit of a throwback to one of their previous metal kits who sported that look. That one's also modelling a chainsword in the other hand, and one of them's cradling a bolter. I suppose you could have any war gear that's ranged or melee holstered perhaps, to give you a different way of fielding the model. Quite nice to see him alongside his faithful Ogrin bodyguard as well, and with some Cadian veterans in the background. That guy at the front looks like he's modelling a new grenade launcher. Rules-wise, they gave us rather more clues than they might have done. Kind of interestingly, the fact that he's Cadian actually isn't the biggest deal rules-wise within the new Guard Codex, it sounds. As they talked about at the weekend, it sounds like you can mix regiments within the same army, and you still get to pick a regiment trait for all of them. The regimental trait now more represents the individual regiment rather than the big super regiment that it's drawn from. So say for example you could represent a regiment of stealthy Cadians maybe, or armoured Cassachans, and I think perhaps the system has some benefits and drawbacks. At least on the plus side rules wise though, even though he is marked as a Cadian Castellan, it still sounds like you'll be able to use him for basically any regiment in the Guard Codex, and to me that really implies that there's no real need to use this model rules wise. This guy very much just sounds like a generic senior officer that you can field with any of the standard ones that you have at the moment, even if his name might be officially Cadian Castellan. The rules teasers that Games Workshop gave us sounds like he's going to be a senior officer above the standard officer that comes in the command squad. At the moment we've got company commanders and platoon commanders. Whether or not they'll still exist is another matter, but from what they said it sounds like the standard command squad will just be able to issue one order with the officer included within it. That's kind of implied by the fact that they say that this guy can go around without a retinue, implying that the command squad will all be one thing now, as was previously rumoured. And on top of this, as well as 2 orders, it sounds like this guy's also going to be a captain style model for the guard, giving out a command reroll of some sort to core units nearby, maybe reroll 1s to hit or reroll 1s to wound potentially. Overall it sounds like he's going to be a useful guy to have around, and it does sound quite interesting that you'll both be able to field a generic individual HQ choice as well as potentially an officer within a command squad, depending on which one fits your purposes best. I perhaps wouldn't be too surprised if, similar to things like Space Marine captains or Tau commanders, this guy might just be one per detachment. And as well as that, with all the previews, it does confirm that orders are remaining in the book. They aren't being swapped out for some sort of other exotic mechanic out there. Though I really wouldn't be too surprised if some of the key orders change a bit. I'd be very surprised if move gets to stay in the form that it's in at the moment. I think a lot of people have often found it quite funny that you can just yell at a guardsman with a guy in a fancy hat, and then all of a sudden he could potentially be moving faster than a speeding jet bike ever could. Whatever form they wind up in though, I'm sure they'll be integral to the guard army. In any case, I think it's a pretty good release. A very nicely realised and very flexible commander model is a real asset to have in the guard range, and I'm sure that when the new range of models comes out, it'll be a fairly popular pickup. Let me know your thoughts though. What do you make of the new rules, and would you be tempted to pick up one of these guys alongside a guard army? If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or I'll certainly keep the regular 40k things coming, with new videos out just about every day. I'll certainly keep up with the guard news and review the codex in full once we get it, which should be quite fun. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and that is what allows me to keep on making videos like this quite so often. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.